So today we welcome two San Francisco Bay Area publishers, Heidi Hill of Blue Dot Kids Press and Philip Lee of Readers to Eaters. And I am going to turn it over to Heidi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today, and to Anne and the team. And as Anne was saying, it's great that we can all meet like this and start a conversation, an ongoing conversation, since meeting in person is no-go. I was able to meet some of you. I see Claire there. Hi, Claire, etc. And so during our launch period, which seems like decades ago. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to reconnect again over the summer and talk about some upcoming fall titles and what's been going on for us since we launched in April. So I'm Heidi, for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, and I'm the founder and publisher of Blue Dot Kids Press. And we're a small independent press with a big mission located in San Francisco, California. And on a personal note, I was born and raised in Nevada City, California, which is actually where I am right now. I'm in a bit of a log cabin. It's a little dark in the forest. And both of my grandparents and parents were born and raised in LA. And then I've been living in San Francisco Bay Area for the last 15 years. And my first internship actually out of undergrad was at Heyday Books in Berkeley. So I wanted to mention all of this because as we launched this year, it just meant so much to me to have the support of the small independent California Book Association and all of you as we launched, and to really partner with us at Blue Dot Kids Press and with our awesome sales team. I see Ellen on the call and maybe Lise from Consortium. It really meant the world to have your support as we launched. So thank you. And I really wanted to shout out to a couple folks. Angie from my hometown, The Bookseller, which was actually founded in 1976, which is 3 years before I was born, just down the street. She did a big promotion around our debut titles and on her website as much as they could, given the timing. And I also wanted to just mention Claire, who I met in person, I think her first few weeks there at the Book Passage, and who said she really wanted to support small, independent California businesses. And I really appreciated that. And that's what I really felt from this team. So I'm really excited to present and continue this conversation. So thanks a lot for that. So some of you have met me and heard about our mission, but we are mission driven, like so many wonderful small publishers are. And so I wanted to take the time to talk about a little bit about us. So our name is Blue Dot Kids Press, and it's a nod to Carl Sagan's famous ode to our home, to planet Earth, the pale blue dot, if you haven't guessed that yet. And it's a reminder to preserve and care for our home. And so as I mentioned, our debut books came out in the spring. It was set to launch in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And of course, it turned out to be an unprecedented time to launch, but I'm very optimistic with the warm response we felt from our readers, booksellers, librarians, reviewers. And in our first year, in fact, we were able to be featured on lists and reviewed by Consumer and Trade, including PW, Book Riot, Shelf Awareness, Kirkus, Hornbook, just to name a few. So we're really excited about that as our first year launching in this crazy time. And so our mission is bold and hopeful. It's to aspire to empower the next generation of global citizens with empathy, resilience, creativity, and the shared value of nature and its stewardship. So we're a kids publisher. Everything we do is about kids, if you haven't guessed it. And we focus on kids from 0 to 10. We do fiction, nonfiction, art and craft, and activity books. And for picture books, we really like to focus on fiction about real life subjects that kids are experiencing today, some with back matter. I'm a big fan of back matter, and narrative nonfiction books that introduce young readers to important concepts about the world they're living in today. Our authors and illustrators are from all over the world, and we feel that stories are a powerful vehicle for empathy. And so our books really widen the lens of what it means to live on our planet Earth today. So we're really focused. We want to be known as publishing in two main themes. And so you can always look for a Blue Dot book that's focused on these two themes. The first is skills for global citizens, empathy, resilience, creative thinking. And the second focus area for us is nature, environment, and conservation topics. So those you see in our board books, our nonfiction books, our fiction books, etc. And I really believe that more now than ever, we need books that focus on these themes that are told in different ways, from different perspectives. And in fact, while starting Blue Dot Kids Press, I spoke to librarians and booksellers and teachers and parents who all agreed and confirmed that these types of stories focused on these two main themes are the very books that are needed today. And we're definitely not shying away from complex subjects, but we're offering a gentle, encouraging approach to these topics. So conservation or immigration, bringing in different types of readers to talk about these subjects. And we hope that our books, we really aspire that our books will spark important conversations at home and in the classroom. And I wanted to mention that we really like to walk the talk. So when I started this company along with my team, we really wanted to be a business as a force for good. So in content, of course, but also in creation. So you'll find if you've probably seen when hopefully the books came into your store that the books are all printed on FSC certified paper, which I'm sure you know is the gold standard in forest management and responsibly sourced paper. And we do printing with soy-based inks. And another thing we're proud of is being a member of 1% for the Planet, which was founded by Patagonia and among other environmental leaders. And we'll be donating 1% of our annual sales to environmental and environmental justice causes. You probably saw, because Calvin and Ann were nice enough to send this out to all of you when we launched, that we, for Earth Day this year, had a Plant a Tree initiative. And so we actually were able to plant over 400 trees with our readers. We created this beautiful coloring sheet from our spring book, Under My Tree, and we invited the children to color the tree in with their favorite colors. They emailed those in from their home, so it actually worked even from their home. And we planted a tree in each of the kids' honors via a partnership with a nonprofit, One Tree Planted. So this is really hopeful, especially during this time, meaningful way for children to actually take part in planting seeds for their future. And we know a lot of bookstores weren't able to participate in this, but we plan on making this an annual event for Earth Day, and so we'll be doing this again next year. So we hope to partner with you on that. And I'll just end with, in our own small way, we're really hoping to be a part of Ripple of Hope, but also of action to create a more compassionate and sustainable world. So we really look forward to partnering with you and parents and librarians, et cetera, to empower this next generation of nature stewards and of empathetic global citizens. So we need to do it together because it's not a small goal. So I'll jump into the titles. I'll talk about, I think with my timing remaining, I'll talk about a few lead titles for fall and nod to one coming up right away in January as well. So you've already been looking at quite a while at our lead title for fall, The Day Seda Arrived. This is the cover of that title. Just wanted to point out, you'll always see on our books our logo on the front and a signature side color. So you hopefully one day will say, oh, that's a Blue Dot book. So this book is coming out in September. It's the book made for this moment. I selected it specifically to publish during this year, during this time. And it talks about the universal language of friendship and the power of language to build bonds beyond borders. And so this young girl, you'll see in the illustrations, she's searching for words to help her friends feel welcome and happy in her new home. And along the way, she learns about differences and similarities in the country and in the words. As they do this, they forge this forever friendship. They learn each other's language, exploring the world around them. This is really a kid-appropriate approach to immigration, which we know is an in-demand topic in US literature right now. It's really about learning from others, it's about respect, and it's about starting from a place of empathy. It's expressing a complex subject matter, but in an approachable and encouraging story. And it begins immediately from a place of empathy. And then in the back, there's English and Arabic alphabet in the back matter. And then sprinkled throughout, there's over 20 words in both Arabic and English. I'll read Kirkus's review. They really got the point of the book, which is so exciting. They say, a lyrical, playful book about immigration, respect, learning, and friendship across cultures. This is the important part. Remarkably, the exchange between the two new friends presents the two languages and cultures as equal, and the learning as reciprocal, offering a great resource for learning about immigration and cultural differences. This is also selected to be part of the I'm Your Neighbor Welcome Library, and the board member of this nonprofit organization says, exploring and widening each other's worlds through language and friendship, these girls are models for promoting a culture of welcoming and belonging. So as I go through these, I'm going to mention lists that these could fit on. I know people have always come to you for recommendations on books, but I know now, since they can't browse, they're in there saying, go, a book about this, this, and this. And so I'll just mention a few lists for your customers this could fit on. Of course, this would fit under friendship, empathy, and immigration, among others, but those are the main topics if you're pulling together lists for teachers or for parents. So the next up is my favorite memories. And this is now publishing in August. It's great to pair it with The Days Say to Arrive, perhaps, focusing on immigration. And it's a beautiful, simple story about moving to a new home, exploring themes of change and permanence, and told with warm illustrations from an award-winning illustrator. So it's a way for educators, parents to talk about the theme of resilience and complex life events, such as moving to a new home or broadening out to the topic of immigration. It's a realistic fictional story, which are the kinds we like to publish, told in a simple, approachable style. And it also fills the gap for more social emotional learning opportunities. The illustrator, Julie Vaughn, is a White Raven Award winner, a 2018 IBBY Honored Illustrator, and this actually just won the 2020 Bologna Ragazzi Award for Fiction, which didn't happen in person, but it still won the award, so we were excited about that. Booklist gave it a starred review, which added credibility to it, saying it was a gentle story about change, home, and the hope life hands us when we open our hearts to receive it. So this again could fit under resilience, new experiences, moving, and immigration. And then up next on our fall list is Jacob's Fantastic Flight. This is a little bit of a departure because it's funny. And I'm so happy we picked a funny title, actually. It's humorous story about embracing the unknown. Jacob has a special gift: he can fly. When his parents plan a trip to the sea, he says, well, I'll fly there myself, of course. And so along the way, he meets all of these friends, cranky cows and a bunch of birds migrating. And they have this, if you may, a mini hero's journey in a kid's book, because he goes through saving this little bird from the notorious bird catcher, and they collaborate and they work together to save all of the birds. And kids, of course, love the idea of flying and the adventure aspect of Jacob's solo flight. And Philip is an author and illustrator. He's also the recent Bologna Ragazzi Comics Award honoree. So this has his signature comic style, which really adds to the humor. And this is a great opportunity to talk about all those 21st century skills for kids: independence, helpfulness, teamwork, cooperation. But again, it's encouraging, humorous, and uplifting, which is what we need right now, what kids need right now. But it's actually an adult pleaser as well. When parents read it, they usually laugh out loud. And Kirkus gave it a starred review, praising it as high-flying humor with heart. So that was great. And then, yeah, just lastly, I'll sneak peek into 2021, because why not? It's always exciting. We have a January title, which is already showing up on the list, and this will be our first title of 2021. We'll also have a new series of board books and an accessible and actionable nonfiction book, so please look out for those. So this is Seeking an Aurora, and we're excited about this book because it really highlights a child and dad relationship. It really celebrates this connection. So in this book, a child and father share this unforgettable moment of the majestic splendor of an aurora at night. So the father wakes the child up and he says, come on, we're off to see an aurora. And they walk through the frost and they walk up a hill and then they wait together. And you can see them sitting there really looking at each other, not talking a lot, but this connection is being fostered. And then they share this wonderful, beautiful, majestic splendor of the aurora. And then they walk back and the dad opens up and starts talking about everything he knows about the Aurora. And you can really see the connection being developed there outside in nature. And this is a perfect book for those who love Owl Moon. It's really a meditation on nature. And then at the end, we have back matter. And this offers an opportunity to learn about the geographical opportunities around both of the auroras and the southern and northern lights to inspire others to seek out natural wonders of their own. You can see on the collection that I created for this group, some of the spring titles you may have missed. Under My Tree and Ivy Bird have been doing really well. So please, I invite you to check those out. Those are nature titles that could work all year and for gifting as well. And yeah, I'll end so that everyone has enough time to chat. I just want to say, I hope that I've sparked your curiosity. You can see our Edelweiss collection in the chat. You can continue to explore that. For me, you can ask me questions, but I have a few questions for you. I love learning, and I would love to just hear, is there anywhere unusual that you're learning about books these days? You know, it's an unprecedented time. Are there other ways you're learning or exploring about books? And also the second main question is resources. Are you receiving resources, or would you like to receive from small publishers that are really being helpful and impactful and for you? And then we can learn from that. So if you want to place that in the chat or just shout it out, you can do that. So that's it for me. I do invite you, of course, to follow us on Twitter and Instagram and emails, because we'll be talking about a lot of those environmental conservation and environmental justice initiatives, coloring sheets, activity kits, citizen scientist activities that would be great for customers. And then I'm at the email hello@blue.kidspress. I'm still answering all of my emails, although I have a larger team, but I like to answer them all personally. So feel free to reach out. And thanks a lot for your support again. And yeah, have any questions?
All right, I think we'll go ahead
Thanks, everyone.
and turn it over to Philip.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great. Heidi, the books are beautiful. It's
Thank
really
you.
great. It's
Thank
really
you,
great
Philip.
to hear your books, and it works out nicely because actually you'll see, like, I think we work in many parallel ways. You know,
Yeah.
so you know, first of all, hello everybody. So I'll just jump in, look at the time, and I'm Philip Lee. So I'm the co-founder of Readers to Eaters. Actually, I co-founded a company with my wife, Junjo Lee, who's not here. Like, she's has a day job, but I'll tell a little bit more about like that I'll set up. So very quickly, I'm here now in San Francisco. I moved back here about 2 years ago, but I have a long history in the area. In fact, I started my publishing career here in the Bay Area. I went to Cal, started off, actually my first publishing job is working at the ASUC bookstore. And that's really my entry into publishing. And then from after, so I started off as a Bay Area bookseller. From a student at ASUC bookstore, I worked at Upstart Crow. Some of you may remember that from way back, you know. And then from there, actually, my manager at Upstart Crow, Maryland, started then College Avenue Books on College in Ashby in Berkeley. You know, that now has become like Mrs. Dalloway. And so, you know, so I worked in the bookseller field, you know, for a long time, and then moved to New York. And actually, I started off working in magazine publishing, but I left to start this company called Lee & Low Books. And so many of you may be familiar with Lee & Low. So I'm the Lee of the Lee & Low. And so I've been doing that for quite a while. And then moved back to Seattle. From New York, I relocated to Seattle, and I was there for 20 years before I moved back to the Bay Area 2 years ago. So this is a really nice homecoming for me to be back in the Bay Area. It's certainly, the Bay Area shaped all my politics and my worldview. And so it's really happy to be back home. And so, so like I said, so I've been working at Lee & Low, like starting Lee & Low, some of you know, is a with a focus on diversity and multiculturalism. That really is kind of segue into my interest in starting Readers to Eaters as well. We started a company in 2009, so just over 11 years. We actually started 2 months after. We started actually 2 months after Michelle Obama started the White House Garden. It was like 11 years ago. There was already a lot of conversation about the food system, certainly with Michelle Obama, but also Michael Pollan, who wrote like Omnivore's Dilemma and the many bestseller books since then. There was a lot of awareness about, you know, our broken food system, but actually not as much about the education. So we started Readers to Eaters. In fact, started off as a pop-up bookstore. We were a bookstore. We were selling books about food at farmers market and a lot of food locations, and as a bookseller. But very quickly, the interest was very much about books for kids, the people coming up buying books from us, not like certainly adult books, but a lot of questions about book for kids, and specifically, books about diverse conversation about books for kids, about food. Here these parents are going buying, shopping at farmers market, but they want to have conversation with their kids about what and why they eat. And so that really gave us the idea very quickly to launch our own publishing program. So again, Readers to Eaters started as a pop-up bookstore, but then, since I already came from a publishing background, so it just only makes sense for us to create our own books. And my wife, Junjo Lee, actually came from the food background. So I'm the reader, she is the eater. In fact, she is, like her day job, she's a food ethnographer she studied anthropology of food, and she is the food ethnographer for Google. So she studies how people eat for Google, so, and so we're really kind of combining our interests, and that shapes our mission, out the way we approach what we publish, but I'll also get into talking about how we build our marketing and partnership. So Readers to Eaters, we publish books about food, and very quickly, a lot of people think, oh, we do cookbooks. But in fact, cookbook is, we do have one cookbook, but in fact, that's really not our focus. Our focus is less about health and nutrition, even though that is kind of assumed. That is obviously, we want to promote that, but we're really talking about culture. Again, it's kind of extension of what I used to do at Lee and Low, is that talking about the diverse culture of food, about diverse food cultures in America, about what and how we eat, but then using food as the most basic universal experience that we all share every day as a springboard to talk about larger issues, such as immigration, such as social justice, such as environmental issues, and so on. So, using food, it really is a wonderful way to connect to every subject. Again, we can talk about STEM education, talk about science, again, so we find that, in fact, food is actually it's just a great springboard to every subject rather than limiting what our publishing mission can be. So we actually touch on every subject. And our company is published, we're distributed by PGW, so I'm sure you're all familiar with them. So quick example of some about the books that we publish. Most recently, we published a book called The Thing About Bees. You can see it on our website. I think like Emma can click on that. And this is a good example of what we try to do. So this is the story. It's not just a thing about bees. It's called has a subtitle, A Love Letter, because it is actually a story about a father, in this case specifically an African American father, writing a poem to his two sons. And it's really kind of start with, yes, the father is very afraid of bees, and he explains to his son that yes, bees can be scary, they can be pesky, and they can be annoying. But guess what, kids? You too can be scary and annoying, but the world can't live without bees, like I can't live without you, And it becomes a story about overcoming fear, but it's also a way of sharing love. And this is exactly it's a great example of what we try to do and how we talk about a subject that instantly it's what's been really rewarding with this book coming out is that people has been reading it in many, many different ways. The obvious way is talk about like there's a section about bees, a section about pollination, but to give you a little bit of his author and illustratorship as Larkin's sensibility, well, we have a chart in the back about bees, and it goes from kind to kind of mean, so give you an idea. And he writes this really personal author's note about why he wrote this book. And it's like really about three things, about why life is, he learns that, it's about overcoming fear, and why and one thing he learned about overcoming fear is that the more you learn about it, the more it's less scary it is. And in fact, the more he learns about it, then he finds out even something as fearful as bees is really important to us all, and that includes you kids. And so, and then he put together a chart and give more information about bees. But what we find is that as this book comes out, not only is it being read about our environment and save the bees, but it's also being read about overcoming fear during this time of coronavirus. And it's also talking about, and it turns out a book that's frequently shared during Black Lives Matter, because how a Black father shares his love with his children. And Shabazz talked a lot about how we need to talk about Black joy during these conversations of Black Lives Matter. And that's really important to us too, is that, having a book that can touch on people's lives and connect with people in many, many ways. And even though it started as a food science story. So that's a really good example of what we try to do. And then another example that I want to point out, the kind of books that we talk about, is a very recently book called Chef Roy Choi and the Street Food Remix. And this book came out 2 years ago now, but it continues to be really popular. In fact, it just won just in the last fall from the LA Public Library, the FOCO Award, which is the best book about California. And Chef Roy Choi, some of you may know, is the street cook in LA that started a whole food truck movement with the Kogi barbecue by putting the Korean barbecue in a taco and driving around, in a food truck. In fact, it was the very first business on Twitter. They would announce is that you can, it was the timing was just right where you can tell people, like, you can find me outside of Venice Beach, you can find me at the UCLA dorm. And without Twitter, he wouldn't be able to launch his business. And obviously food truck exists before, but he was the first kind of culinary trained chef to actually apply that skill to what used to be just sandwich trucks. And again, like we talk about this book not just because he's a famous chef and not just about food truck, but it's an immigration story. The reason why the Kogi barbecue is successful is because he wasn't doing this marketing gimmick, of doing a Korean barbecue, but where he lived in Koreatown in LA is right next door to the Latinx neighborhood. And so it's really an outgrowth of street food. Like the kids play together, and the food certainly get a remix. And so it's very much an immigration story that we want to talk about. This is how the new American cuisine is now. It's a remix, and we purposely pair this book, because this book about street food, we want to find a street artist, and the illustrator is Man Wan, and he is a really well-known illustrator, a really well-known graffiti artist in LA. Now he paints like 4 or 5 story, murals in LA. In fact, he was gonna commission to paint the opening day Dodger game earlier this spring, and obviously that didn't happen. But if anybody, again, the camera's not on me, but if anybody, if you can see me right now, behind me is actually the original art of the book. And so Man Wan spray painted all the artwork for this book on these 5-6 foot tall canvases. And so this image, can you all see it? Okay, like this image behind me is as tall as I am, so it's really cool. And this Chef Roy Choi and the Street Food Remix is part of our Food Heroes series, and written by Jacqueline Briggs Martin. And Jacqueline Briggs Martin, some of you know, has written many, many books before, including the Caldecott winner, Snowflake Bentley. Just an excellent writer. And in fact, this for Roy Choi, she co-wrote the book with my wife, Junjo Lee, because Junjo Lee and Roy Choi share the same Korean immigration experience. And so, but with the Food Hero series, we don't just want to feature people who are famous in food. That's not what we try to do. We want to feature people who are using food as a way to make a better community. And so part of that series it came out a few years ago, is Alice Waters and the Trip to Delicious. Many of you, again, also know Alice Waters, a famous chef right here in Berkeley, but we want to feature her not just because she's famous, but it's actually specific because she started Edible Schoolyard, because what she does for children, for educating kids about using, again, starting the whole farm to table movement in California, and nationwide, and then now starting this whole movement, educating kids. In fact, even though the book came out a few years ago, it's a good time. I purposely want to highlight it because this fall marks the 25th anniversary of the Edible Schoolyard. And in fact, next year marks the 50th anniversary of Chez Panisse Restaurant. And again, we talk a lot about how Alice Waters is such a pioneer. I mean, 50 years ago, there wasn't even the word organic. And she started going to farmers and talking about growing food without chemicals. Again, before it was even the idea of what organic meant. And so it's a book that we talked to kids about what it meant to be a woman chef at the time, to have a restaurant that inside a house that was converted and not just your common, like a restaurant space. And so that's another example of how we choose our food heroes who are really making a difference. Thanks for sharing those artwork. And then Alice wrote the author's note about what she learned about cooking and food from starting Chez Panisse and then Edible Schoolyard, and even from her daughter Fanny, who is actually quite an adult now, but at the time when she was a little girl. And then just completing the last of the Food Hero series, we have a book called Farmer Will Allen and the Growing Table. In fact, I'm kind of talking backwards. Roy Choi's the most recent, Alice Waters the second one, and Farmer Will Allen is the very first book. And Farmer Will Allen, some of you also may know, he's based in Milwaukee. He's the best known urban farmer. Now it's like, again, it's everywhere, such a common idea, but Will Allen started doing urban farming close to 30 years ago, and using aquaponics and hydroponics. And in fact, from his very inventive farming technique, he actually won the MacArthur Genius Technique. And he was a former basketball star. So we take the story, so you can see he goes from basketball to farmer. And when we talk to kids that he's an athlete, a farmer, and a genius, the kids tend to react like, wow, that's couldn't be like one person being all those things, So that's the kind of stories that we do. It's like profiling people who grow food or cook food, but using food to make better communities. And then like in the case of with the bee book, with the thing about bees, it's also talking about like getting kids to connect with food in larger context, and how to save the bees. And so one thing most recently I also want to highlight, actually this is not even on the webpage yet, is that we have two books. You see Zora Zucchini and Sylvia Spinach there. Those are our earlier books, but now our books are coming out in the Spanish edition. Sylvia Spinach is already out. Zora Zucchini is coming out this fall. And we're really excited about it because, these two books, they've been really popular, especially with farmers markets and a lot of food organizations, as a way to introduce early readers on not just about growing food, but also tasting food, what it means to try something with all your senses. So a lot of our books, again, we talk about food, but we use that as an example to be more aware of all the sensory education, what it means to smell, taste, touch, and see food, or even hear your food sometimes, And I want to segue, so editorially, so you can see what we do, but also talked about our marketing and our partnership, and the two Spanish books are good examples because Readers to Eaters, our title, really also describes our marketing effort. We go to a lot of reading organizations, literacy organizations, such as libraries and bookstores, and talk about how they're in part of the food system now. Not just through, especially in the case of libraries and schools, not just in terms of books about food, but many of them are hosting garden education. Many of them are hosting, cooking classes. But more importantly, like library has been actually feeding kids through their lunch at the library program. So we work very closely with, especially California Library Association probably has the largest program in the country with their lunch and library program. So we work very closely with them, and talk about how they are part of the food system. And so we take the same message to the eater part, to food organizations, and remind them that they are an education center. So we work a lot, for example, farmers markets. They use SNAP Ed funding or WIC funds, Women, Infant, and Children funds, to do a lot of education. That's part of the mandate for nutrition education. But they have never used that nutrition education funds to buy books before. So now we've been able to partner with them that they're able to promote nutrition education and literacy at the same time. And so we find that at our work with Readers to Eaters, working with readers and eaters, is to break down these traditional silos and how we serve the community. And part of that effort is that leading to, thanks for having this our flyer out, because I specifically want to highlight, so you can see this our book flyer that you can download. But on the right hand side, and I'll update this, we have a specific food literacy calendar. So throughout the year, every month, there are occasions where we can talk about food in new ways. We want to talk about Women's History Month and Poetry Month and all these things that we celebrate often at bookstores, but include with the food element to it. And why, say, for example, like Alice Waters should be celebrated in Women's History Month. And so coming up, for example, coming up very soon, I'm just looking at like National Farmers Markets Week is next week, actually. It's August 2nd to the 8th of this year, and National Zucchini Day is the August 8th. So those are times that maybe in your bookstore, at your bookstore, is be able to reach out and partner with, gardening organizations and partner with the farmers markets to promote books at the same time. I think I can, again, even in Southern California, I work very closely with Santa Monica Farmers Market, well, obviously, and the Pasadena Farmers Market, always very interested in looking for new ways to promote nutrition education. So if they can bring a bookstore partner to the market, or at least co-promote events that can take place at the market, and say maybe there's a coupon that they can pick up at the bookstore, or start a book club together, about what's happening at the market and at the store, I think they would welcome these partnerships, and in fact, going into September is Food Literacy Month. Food Literacy Month is officially recognized by the state of California. And in fact, I modeled it when I was in Seattle got state of Washington as the second state to officially adopt it. And it's a way to promote food education, and specifically, and I can even send you that official document from the California legislature, is highlighting a bookstore as a partner to promoting farmers markets, libraries, and other organizations such as booksellers as a way to promote food education. So keep that in mind coming up in September, and it's a great way to lead into October, National Cookbook Month. At the libraries, and again, I work very closely with them, cookbooks is, I believe, the second largest nonfiction category after biographies. And so they're always, and every time you have any program about food, it always brings people in. So again, it's like, using food, but using food broadly as a way to bring customers into the store is a great way to start a conversation. And right now, during the pandemic, we are actually, as a company, doing a lot of these new partnerships of how to connect with school. As you probably all read, school nutrition programs is doing a wonderful job feeding kids during the pandemic. And so we're trying to see how we can partner with getting books into those packages, so address some of the disparity issues, like the kids who get getting their food also get the print copy of books. But we would also welcome new partnership with booksellers doing it together. In Washington, D.C., we're doing that. We're partnering with booksellers to bring books into some low-income schools with books, with food delivered to their homes. And so, I don't want to talk too much longer, but these are the kind of partnerships that we welcome. And we've at this point worked with organizations like that throughout the country. And so, just get in touch with me. Again, we are also very busy on the Facebook and Twitter, and you can see a lot of our programming, our partnership programs with schools and libraries and food organizations and also booksellers about how we're promoting the food message. So,
and can I drop your email into the chat for everyone?
yes, oh please, yes,
okay.
that would be great. And my emails, I'll just say it real quick too. That yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip@readerseaters.com. So that's what we are, and we're excited to be here and work with you all.